And welcoming into Chamber Amplified, Jen Kuhn with the Kaleidoscope Youth Center, one of our newest members here at the Chamber of Commerce. Jen, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So I say one of the newest members of the Chamber of Commerce, but when we did your welcome to the Chamber, welcome our new member video, new but not new, still serving a population here in Findlay and Hancock County, just kind of taking the reins from Spectrum and running with the ball. I don't know how many different analogies I can put in there, but not necessarily new. Your work here has been noted before and is respected in the area.
Yeah. We've been in Ohio for really 30 years, and we are headquartered, I guess you would say, in Columbus, but we have statewide reach, and we work with like school communities, other providers. We offer behavioral health telehealth services. So we definitely have been around, and with Findlay for the past year or so, we've been kind of really focusing in on outreach in the area and we have actually a needs assessment happening right now to kind of see what services we can support in Northwest Ohio, specifically in Findlay. So we've been hanging out for a little bit and excited to kind of set up shop, so to speak, and have a more permanent presence.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on board. One of the reasons we wanted to have you on the podcast is to really talk maybe in more of an HR perspective. A few years ago, we talked about how to be an authentic ally in the workplace. And certainly a lot has changed over the last couple of years, and we don't have to get into all of that. We'll be here all day, but we want to talk about making workplaces a welcoming workplace. And that's kind of where you come in. So from your perspective, what are some of the things that all employees need that a business can show them to show that, they are wanted there regardless of their background?
Yeah, when I think about that, like truly, I just think about, things like respect and dignity and boiling down to like, don't be a jerk to one another, right? And
it really could just be that simple, right? Like, hey, maybe if we're nice to each other, we'll be all right.
Right. And we have all the anti-bullying ads in the world, and it really comes down to that. Like, we don't need to pick on anyone. We don't need to like zero in on and exclude anyone. We don't need to do anything like that. If we approach everybody in the workplace from a point of respect and kindness, like that's the real like basic level set thing that I think we all could do to just make all environments that we're in a little more welcoming.
So it's really more about actions by a business or a company rather than putting a label on everything that's being done. From that perspective, what does it feel like or what does it look like to you for a business that really allows you to be you in the workplace?
Yeah, I think about if for example, if you have a dress code, like at Kaleidoscope, we all can wear jeans and things like that, and that's great. But like if you're at a professional business, we all are, gonna dress a certain way and everything. And I think looking at it from a place of just everybody should be able to have a little bit of expression in how they present and what they do. And like, even if we're thinking about things that are, cultural, maybe not relating to LGBTQ community,
right.
But we allow a little bit of all of ourselves to show up in the workplace. And, just kind of let it be, let us all be, right? And like everyone can just do their own thing. And that's, I think, always a more welcoming take. And I think businesses that, have their BRG groups or their side groups or things like that, like allow opportunity for people that share experiences to still kind of get together and chat and just allow for that sort of freedom, I guess, in the workplace.
Yeah, let's talk about groups like that, because is it important for businesses to have, especially we're a small organization here at the Chamber, so we're all in on the same meetings, but for a larger company where you have many employees, how important is it to have maybe those groups that whether they meet up after work or maybe they're on a Zoom call or something every once in a while. What do those look like? How can they be structured so that they are inclusive and show that a company is also trying to set aside a space so that all of their employees feel like they can get together, kind of talk about the things happening in their lives?
Yeah, well, I think in general, it's important that people with shared experience can talk with one another. If someone from a similar background is experiencing, um, whether it's issues in the workplace or somewhere else, they can talk to someone else who shares an identity, shares a cultural background, whatever it is, and be able to maybe find support or learn how to navigate a situation or any kind of opportunity like that. And at Kaleidoscope, we essentially have similar with our youth. We have not BRG groups, but we have groups that are based on identities and backgrounds, and it's solely for those people that share an experience. And I think it really helps build community, and it makes it a little bit easier too when you're with the group as a whole, because like you have folks that you can turn to in situations, and it's not things that are being bottled up and like people feel like they can't share. And when they feel like they can't share, they kind of turn a little more inward, and it just really doesn't make for a very positive environment.
Conversely, it's great to have groups where you can relate to everybody, but it is really important for us to all be able to talk together when we don't have shared experiences. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that business groups are necessarily the spot for that, but maybe I'm wrong. Could they be, or could there be kind of cross culture groups, whatever you want to call it, where it helps
Yeah.
people? I just feel like the
Yeah.
more we learn about people's experiences, the more likely we are to empathize with people and to like,
Yeah.
it might not be the same thing that we're going through, but we all have things that feel kind of similar.
Absolutely. And even with those groups, like it's not unheard of for like, I don't know, whether you want to call them like community nights or things like that, where like you just kind of share. And I know there are different businesses that like a BRG group, I'm going to use Pride because we're in Pride
Yeah.
Month, for example. The BRG group is hosting like a Pride event that's open to all for people to come and maybe hear from a panel discussion or, just other types of things. So, a lot of the times those groups are sharing out too. And I think allowing employees to sort of drive that is also great, because sometimes when we hear things coming from leadership, we don't always want to listen to leadership when you're, at like a different level. And so I think when your peers are sharing opportunities to learn more about a community, I would definitely encourage people to show up to those things and participate as well. And goes back to listening to each other.
Listening, it's something maybe we could do a little bit more of.
Right.
So, but eventually we're talking and you get people talking. And I think one big fear people have is that they're going to say the wrong thing. And they don't mean to offend. They don't mean to be off-putting, but they get worried about being clumsy in the situation. How important is and again, so like a triggering word would be safe space for some people. Like I don't want to say safe space, but when we're having conversations within our organizations and things like that, how important it is to let people know, like, look, you're going to mess up the words. Don't worry about it. We're here to talk. How do you make sure that people feel like they can all contribute to the conversation that way? That was a really long question. Thanks for entertaining it.
No, and we're all gonna mess up. Like I mess up. Like it just happens, and it's okay. And I think what separates sort of that genuineness of someone genuinely messing up versus like maybe someone's being antagonistic, right? Is in how you do it. And I think as people, we generally are able to pick up on that, and it's okay. And the only way we really are going to learn sometimes is by messing up, right? Like you fail 7 times, you try for an 8th time, right? And so it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to mess up. You move on. I think a lot of times people think about that like in the language they use, and if you use whether we're talking about pronouns or safe spaces or using any of that language, if you mess up and someone corrects you, just go, oh, thank you, move on. Like we don't need to dwell in that space. But I know sometimes it can feel embarrassing and all of that. But if you're coming from a place of genuine interest and just curiosity. Like it's okay. It's okay.
for a business owner or a manager who's like, look, this is like, I want to be supportive, but this is our business. We got to get business done first.
Yeah.
And maybe this isn't the time to talk about it. One, just what are your thoughts on that? And then two, I do tend to agree, like, look, hey, this is great. We all have to get things done though. Is it important though to make time, whether it's after work, for efforts like this, to be, I guess, to be authentic in it rather than being saying we're supportive and then nothing really. It doesn't mean that you're not doing anything, but also it doesn't mean that really you're doing anything to be supportive.
Right. And for me personally, I would certainly think, yes, it's important to make time for it. And it doesn't mean just for LGBTQ community issues or pride. Like I think it's important to make time for anything that's important to your employees. And maybe pride isn't important to your employees, and that's okay, but what is? And let's make the time for them, because that's just going to create a happier work environment too, and happier employees. But I do think it's important, like especially with pride, to show up and people talk about rainbow capitalism, right? Sometimes, and we've seen kind of over the years of like, oh, we just slapped the rainbow on our logo and now we're celebrating pride, and that's great. But now that things are, kind of happening in a different direction right now, we are seeing people not doing that. And that also speaks very loudly to the community. And I think I would argue that it's still important to show up, and just if you're supportive and your employees support that, to still make time for it.
And I think you really outlined it there. So maybe this is a redundant question, but you don't want this to be a box that hey, we checked this. Look how great we are. You want to be authentic in it. And that's really the reason I wanted to have this conversation to begin with, is that let's do the things that make it so we have a great workplace, because a great workplace is we're going to have a better community. It's just, it's a big ripple effect when we do that. So aside from maybe creating those spaces, what are some of the things that businesses can do to be authentic in their efforts to support a community within their business?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, like maybe ask your employees, like, what do they want to see? Like, how do they want the business to show up in the community? I truly believe in, group efforts, because I think that's really authentic versus like, the top of leadership going rogue on things, right? Like that doesn't always feel great. So I think
this is a mandate from the top,
right?
That type of it, yeah.
Right. So, okay, what do the employees want? And if they do want the business organization, whatever it is, to be vocal, okay, well, what does that look like? Does that look like we are so fortunate to have lots of businesses that sell product, give portion of proceeds to Kaleidoscope. And I know others do to other LGBTQ orgs. And it's like, okay, is that one way to show up? Is it throwing an event for your LGBTQ workers? Is it showing up to a pride event around town, something like that? And, but not at the expense of just doing it to do it, right? I think if it comes from a place of this is like the heart of what you do, and this is like how you want to show up as a business, like people do see that people in the community see that as authentic. And people pay attention. The community pays attention to that.
I think ultimately your employees will know if it's a show or not. I think the people who are engaged within your organization definitely, they know what's going. They know the day to day. They know when a manager's being authentic. They know whether it's on this or whatever issue. It could be like it could be on vacation time. Who knows?
Yeah.
So ultimately, it from the internal. The external, though, how important is that? Because there's debate back and forth, and this is one where I've really enjoyed is not the right word. But I found it interesting listening to people talk about how important it is to display this externally. And I just wanted to kind of give you the floor to talk about what it means to you and to organizations like Kaleidoscope.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't want to get too political on it, but I mean, like,
No, and we don't have to, but I think
no,
there's at least my interpretation is there's a very non-political reason
yeah,
for it.
yeah. I, well, I'll start just like personally as a member of the community. I've never considered myself a political topic, right? But
Mhm.
it means a lot when, as a society, we've really built ourselves up around a certain structure, which sometimes did ostracize LGBTQ people. And so when you see a business or organizations and stuff showing that support, it really means a lot, because it says, hey, you belong in our community too, and we welcome you.
Mhm.
We welcome you into our product, or whatever it might be. And when you see some businesses pulling back from that visible support and things, like, it does hurt a little bit. It makes it feel like, oh, we're not actually that important. And then from sort of the nonprofit side, like Kaleidoscope Youth Center, sometimes that looks like loss of funding. Like, some
Yeah.
businesses might not be supporting us anymore financially, and that impacts our programs. And we provide housing support, we provide mental health support, and so these are lives that then are impacted, because people are pulling back on that visible allyship, and it makes a difference for sure.
So, and I guess if you're a business in that situation, and I empathize with the businesses that are in that situation and having to make these types of decisions and everything, what we've talked about all the way up until this point, I think becomes doubly important
Yeah.
because if you're not putting it out there, whatever, you don't have to, and I don't feel like people should feel like they have to do one thing or another. But if you do the things internally and your employees feel like they're welcome and feel like they're a valuable part of the team,
Yep.
my hope is that helps balance the scales at least a little bit. Not it's we're never gonna bat 1,000 on this. There we go. I'm back to
Yeah.
sports analogies. So it took me a little bit, but I
I
aim
love
for three
baseball.
or four of those. I aim for 3 or 4 sports analogies per podcast. But I guess those are the things that people are grappling with. I guess the gist of the conversation is, if we're having those conversations and we're welcoming people to the table to have conversations, we probably are going to move in the right direction. And you can tell me if I'm maybe off the mark on that.
Yeah, Kaleidoscope Youth Center's tagline is "Belonging begins here," and we really want everybody to sort of take that ethos with them into different spaces. And to your point of, if your employees feel like they belong, in whether
Mhm.
it's at your place of work or in the community or wherever, like, that's just going to, and we know with science-based fact of, like, that improves your mental health. Improved mental health is going to make for people that want to work harder, do more, spend more, et cetera, et cetera. And so I really think, at the very least, starting from making sure people feel like they belong in the workspace and in that environment is going to just have a ripple effect down the line.
Most definitely. Jen, we could go on for a long time. This is a bite sized type of podcast,
Yeah.
though. If people want more resources, maybe they want to have a conversation with you about how
Yeah.
maybe they can help structure things within their own organization,
Yeah.
or just kind of get into that conversation. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find all of our contact info at kycohio.org. But you can also email me directly at Jen, at kycohio.org. We keep it easy.
Jen, I really appreciate your time today. And again, looking forward to seeing more of you in the community. And we will talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you so much.